Hi friends, Katsi here from atop Serenity Hill, and today I'm going to share me making my first snippet roll. So for some of you, you're going to be very familiar with a snippet roll. Some of you are going to be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And so for those both in both camps, I hope you learned something from mine if you know what it is. I hope that if you are new to it, you learn something new today. So I'm doing this as part of Junk Journal January, working in my junk journal. So if this video is the first time you've been introduced to me, then there's a whole playlist below for me working in my junk journal, and also an entire playlist that you can find for Junk Journal January and all the artists that participated in it. So a snippet roll is basically a long strip. As I open this journal, I'll just explain it real quick. But a snippet roll is basically a long strip of fabric or paper that has a bunch of little bits glued, stapled, sewed, both hand sewing and like sewing machine sewing to it. And then it is rolled around something. I'm going to hold up my glue stick. This would not be you could roll it around a glue stick, but it's just wrapped around it, almost like a really long piece of like quilt that you would wrap around a spool, and then you use it for bits and things. You cut it off and cut it up and use it. Some people just make it for fun and store them and have them as a decorative element. And so I've never made one, and I thought I would make one with you today. The reason being is that we are up to, for me, I am up to prompt number 10. And I'm going to combine 10, 11, and 12. And I might even throw in 13, 14, and 15. I'll share as I go what I'm going to do, because coming up, my next video after this one will be my contribution to Junk Journal January as a collective, and it's 16 Unfold. So I might do that. But what got me thinking about the snippet roll was the word trim. And this little fold out in my journal, this is the back. You can see it. Mine is has 3 signatures. So the back signature is in this little folder, trifold. That's where this signature is. And the edges are just kind of blah. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be kind of fun to trim the edges? And that's where a snippet roll would come in to place, is that I would make it and then I can use it so it hangs off the edge as my trim. And so then I went to number 11, which is magazine, and I have my little magazine here. And I was like, what if I made the snippet roll using images from a magazine, preferably something in the floral, because I do a lot of things that are floral. And then the word overlap, and I was like, well, when you make a snippet roll, you tend to overlap all the bits of paper with each other. So that would cover 3 all at the same time. So that's what I'm going to do with y'all today, and make a snippet roll. Then I will show you how I'm going to attach it and maybe a couple different ways we can use it. So you need something as a base for your snippet roll. I'm going to use this. It's some kind of deli paper, perhaps. I dyed this, but it was in a class where we had lots of different papers available. So I don't know that this was my paper or something that was floating around that we were all sharing. But it feels kind of waxy, so I'm thinking some kind of deli paper. And it was done with shaving cream marbling. And I thought this would be a fun base. I'm going to slice it long ways. Let me do that so that if you're following along. So I measured it, and if I do each slice a little less than an inch, and it doesn't have to be perfect because this is just the base that everything is going onto. So I do a bunch of slices, and I will cut them up off camera. You don't need to watch me slice a bunch of paper, but a bunch of these, and then they would get attached to each other in a long row. So my snippet roll is not going to be very big, because not very wide, I should say. It's going to be long, but it won't be very wide because I want it to go into this junk journal. All right. So my junk journal is not huge. even if I used it as a belly band, I wouldn't want it to be like this really wide thing. It would take up too much space within the size journals that I normally work in. So it's a little less than an inch for it, okay? So I have a base, and I'll cut up a bunch of these. And then the idea is then to just have bits that collect. Ooh, this is a good one. So let me cut this out. And then, so I love the idea of using the magazine one because it was one of the prompts. I love combining the prompts. I'm finding it, I was doing it more for, I don't have time to do all the prompts one a day, or I didn't really feel like taking each prompt and breaking it down. And I was finding it a kind of a fun challenge to see how many prompts I could get in one project, which is kind of hilarious. But it's fun to be able to say how many prompts can I get in one project. And that's why I was thinking, like, even to go through and add, opaque as one, balance, neutral. Those are all prompts that could be added to my snippet roll. And so here, I actually will share my thoughts as I was going. So trim first. Trim is to make the snippet roll and trim the edge of the paper. Magazine is to use the magazine images as part of it. Overlap is overlapping. Opaque, I took as a lot of my images are opaque, but what can I add that's the opposite of opaque, which would be transparent? So one, I'm using, this is transparent. The piece that's on the base is transparent. Two, I'm going to use some of the pieces that I've been using already in the junk journal. If you go to my playlist below and go through what I've been doing in the junk journal, you'll recognize some of this. But can I, a lot of what I'm using is opaque. So can I add some transparent elements to break it up? So this is sewing pattern. So I will add some of this to be my opposite of opaque, because again, you interpret prompts the way you interpret a prompt. Just because it says opaque doesn't mean you have to be opaque. Like, what does that mean to you? Do you need something transparent to balance all the opaqueness that's in your journal? So that's my opaque. The other is balance. So I want a balance of things on my snippet roll. Okay, so I've got some transparent pieces here. I've got, I've just found this with you. I didn't plan this, but I also know my color palette really well. And so the other things, I had pulled all of this ahead of time, just so you know. I have some of these flowers that are part of a project that are in here. And so could I add some of these in, and hallelujah, look, they match perfectly. Also my color palette. So, the doily gives another one. It's a balance of things in that it gives another texture. It also adds some brightness with white. These are some texture pieces. This was for the embossed. Embossed. And so I have a bunch of this left over. And can I add this? Again, a balance of colors when it goes to adding all these together, and balancing out the fact that I'm not using the same thing, but the same papers. I'm using lots of different things, but they all blend together and balance each other. The other thing that this can also talk to when you're balancing, when you're using the word balance, is the cohesiveness of your actual journal. That doesn't always matter to me. I tend to just play and let whatever happens happen. But, I'm going to put a fairly significant, where is it here? Oops. Peek at something else. A fairly significant piece in here. So is it balancing with the colors of this? All right. So when I start adding all of this on, let's pull this over. Is it balancing with this, or is it clashing? And so I know that it's not clashing, it's balancing. So that's another way to bring balance, okay? Just because it says the word balance, like what other things, cohesiveness, harmony, what other words could balance mean to you when you're going through it as a prompt, all right? So I've got these things as well. I've also pulled in some other little white pieces because it gives it a pop of brightness as I go. I don't want everything to just be a bunch of color. So again, these were things that were left over from the projects. And then the final one that caught my eye was the word neutral. And, you know, as in its essence, my journal is neutral because it's made from this brown paper bag, which is neutral. This tan color is a neutral to me. And so adding in the sewing pattern, you know, another texture, and also a floral because I was trying to do some embossing on this cardboard, a neutral, and then bringing in some coffee dyed paper, which is, you know, what this part is right here. So I have that as part of my journal, which speaks to balancing, but also as a neutral color. Okay, so this is me going to make a snippet roll using 6 prompts all at the same time. Not something you have to do. It's just something fun to challenge yourself to see how many different elements can you bring together and still make something that's cohesive. All right. So to make the snippet roll, basically you have to have a bunch of little things. Not little, but you know, little-ish things. And I'll start just laying out and we'll go from there. Again, this is the first one I've ever made. So let's bear that in mind. I'm feeling my way with you. So, but this is how I would think it through. And obviously I'm going to do this a lot, you know, a lot longer. So it doesn't all have to be, you know, I'm going to connect a bunch. So I'm going to just show you the general gist, and then I'm going to make most of it off of the camera because you don't necessarily, I mean, you might want to see me do it all at one time, but I think that's kind of boring. But I just want to make sure that I'm getting lots of different elements tucking in here. The other option for many people is, do you want all the pieces to be like squares? Do you want them all to be circles? Are you going to use your punches? I love a torn edge, so I'm okay with just ripping paper and just adding it on, because I'm just laying this out for right now to see, what do I think? Where is it going? How does it feel? Eventually I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and I'm going to run a zigzag stitch down the whole thing. So that's what's going to hold it on for me. You could be gluing it as you go, you know, and I am going to put some glue. I'll show you as I go. But, you know, I just want to see, like, how does this work? How does this feel? How does this, oops. How wide do I want it? Because remember, I don't want it super, super wide because of the fact that of where I'm putting it in the journal, and that my journal is not that large to begin with. And I don't have to put a ton of stuff on here. I mean, that would be plenty. And for me, the base is also available if I want to still have it peek through. It's not necessary, but you know, some of the lace doily is allowing the base to peek through. But I'm liking how it's just very random bits. And, you know, do I need to find some other things, other colors? When I say other things, I mean other bits of paper. Is this enough for me? I mean, I think so. And then I don't have a ton of these flowers, so I definitely know that I need a section so one of these sections, let's see, 1, 2, yeah. So one strip this long will do both sides of this. Whoops, you can't see. Both sides of this, Okay, and then I need another strip to do both sides of this. After that, the snippet roll doesn't have to include the flowers. So what I want to make sure is that this roll, this section, and the one that follows it, maybe have these flowers as part of their aesthetic, because I want that section to go into my journal. The other part of the snippet roll will be something I would use in the future. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. And if you have questions, please leave them below. I'm happy to answer them. I'm hoping as I go here, your questions get answered, but you never know. What I'm going to do this is I'm going to use a glue stick. And, I've kind of like, this works. I like this. So I'm going to move this stuff off ever so just to the side. I'm going to cut one more strip. So this is how I'm going to start assembling it. So I have the general idea of where I want, of what I want on there. It works visually for me. This is a very thin piece of paper. And it doesn't have to be perfectly, a perfect strip. That's not what I'm looking for. So before I move on, I want to make sure that I have 2 strips ready to go. So as I start tacking stuff down, when I get to about here, I'll add the next strip on, and then I'll start working on adding the little bits. Okay. So I'm going to put, I don't know if this will help or not, but I'm going to grab a white piece of paper because my table, so you can see really well. So you see all my bits here, but that way you can see what this looks like. So I've tacked this on. Don't wear long sleeves when you're doing this. And just a little bit of glue. Because again, I'm going to take this to my sewing machine. So I don't need this to hold it forever. I need it to hold it so I can run it through the sewing machine. Of course, try not to glue it to your base. And excuse my voice if it's sounding a little froggy. It seems today is froggy day. And so the other thing, because I'm going to run a zigzag stitch through the middle, I'm also trying to make sure that everything is, crossing that middle line as I go. So, bear that in mind. Like if yours is really wide, you might end up having to go, if it's really wide, you might need to run down the center a few times with even a straight stitch. I just know that I want a zigzag stitch. It's one of my favorite stitches, is a zigzag. So that's what I'm going to use. And so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just basically tacking down a bunch of things. I'm trying to, use my prompts. I'm trying to balance out the colors, balance out my pieces that I'm using. It might help for you to just go through and, put down a bunch of the brown paper, the neutral paper that I have. It might help for me to just go down and, I've got this purple paper and I just start tacking that down. So that I'm not trying to build it, a little bit, I'm trying to build these little sections. I'm just being way more random about it. And keeping, just wherever it feels fun and appropriate. know I had a bigger piece. And obviously, you know, I could have found a lot more in my magazine. It's a whole magazine of florals, you know, it's called horticulture. But this one, because I'm using such a tiny snippet roll, is working. So why not just go with what's sitting here in front of me? All right, so I need a piece of this. So again, it's about, I'm balancing out my shapes. When I look down, do I have a little bit of, you know, of this doily, or even just something white across everything? And I like that, you know, I like when you tick it up, it's got that ragged edge to it. That's a good thing. And so basically this is it. This is me just adding random things onto this snippet roll. And then I'll run it through the sewing machine. Okay, so I'm gonna continue to just tack all this stuff down. See what else I might wanna pull in. I think more brown paper. Oh, you know what I haven't added is some of this. I haven't added the transparent part. Ooh, fun. That's really fun. I'm just tucking this, kind of smushing it up and tucking it in. Ooh, I'm liking that. So instead of trying to, this works really well as a smushy piece. It's very official wording here, smushy piece. That's going to give it some fun texture. Whoops. I need to smush first. All right, so you get the general gist of my snippet roll. I'm going to play a little bit more on camera. Just, you know, let it be a little bit of a fast forward, and then I'll run it to the sewing machine, and I'll meet you back here. All right, so I ended up doing 3 sections, 3 of those pieces that I showed you. After that, it felt like more than I would use, and I didn't really feel like I, needed to make that much. But then I ran a zigzag stitch through the center, and I have a rainbow thread so that as it goes, it keeps changing color, which I love because then it actually adds to the coloration, of the piece, which is just delightful. Okay, and on the back, I just used white, and so you can see where I kind of stayed as close to the center as I could. I didn't stray off the edge too much with my extra, frou-frou pieces, so it was pretty easy to stay in the center. And then I have this fun piece. So pretty much I caught all the pieces as I was sewing. So that's kind of important to pay attention to. But I know that there's a couple pieces, like I think this one and definitely this one, that are not caught under the sewing part. So that's why I tacked it down with a glue stick. And as I cut it and use it, I might have to go back in and just add, I probably will just add a little bit extra glue to some of the pieces I know didn't get held in by the sewing. But I was trying to be as cognizant as possible as I laid everything down that they, crossed that center mark of what I considered the center of my Snippet Roll. Okay, so my whole purpose for this was to have something super fun to edge this page in. And oh, look how the colors work. So obviously you could just do it on one side. Oops, being in camera would be helpful, right, people? But the other side of this is not exactly gorgeous. So I think I'm going to cut 2 pieces for each. So one for this side, one for this side, and back them into each other. And look how, that's the thing about you doing a snippet roll, is that you can use so many different pieces that you have left over. Look how gorgeous. It still matches this beautifully. And I'm going to put it on this side as well. And because I used green in this from the garden, it goes with my paper. And just FYI, the way, if you followed this, I mean, you followed me making this, you'll know that this was a single piece of paper, but the way I glued it onto the cover, I glued it probably too tight, and as I've been, making, working in here, this page started to rip, so I just ripped it, okay? And eventually, as I work on this page as a spread, I'll probably put some washi tape, or I'll just cover it with some collage, or start with a piece of masking tape just to glue it back together. It's not going to fall apart because all the pages on this spread are glued to each other, but just, if, as you see this was one page glued down, one single sheet, I should say, and eventually split because of how I glued it, but no big deal, just fix it. All right, so we're gonna cut some pieces here. Now, here's the other thing. Once I cut the string, it's no longer backstitched there, but no big deal. I'm not planning to wear this. The glue will hold it and it'll be fine. All right, so let's see. And I don't mind if it sticks out. Might be kind of fun to have a little piece of it stick out of the journal. So, okay, so here's another thing. I want this to be about here, but I don't know that I want to just cut. I will cut just straight. Yeah, I will just cut just straight. Yeah, that's okay. I'm okay with that. I can always tear that a little bit as I go. All right, so if I cut this, I know that I need, yeah, that's about how long I need each piece. So I need 4 of these. And well, I don't know, now I can't tear it because string. But I can cut it kind of irregular. That might be also something for you to think about. So we got 1, 2. So once I get past the string, then I can rip it. 3 and this. Yeah, that'll give it more of a irregular edge. You're just really needing to snip the string. And then I still have this little piece left. So the one that's too perfect here, we're just going to rip a little bit. That way it's not so perfect. I'd even rip this a little bit. And now the string makes no sense, so I'm going to cut that off. All right, so then I have the two pieces of my snippet roll, which I will glue back to back on this, okay? So I'm going to use my art glitter glue. Use whatever works for you. I just want to make sure it's going to come out. You use whatever works for you. And I have to, you know, make some decisions in that. Do I want to just glue this part along the edge? Do I want it to peek out a little bit? I do need to make some decisions that way. What do I want to be able to see? I think I'm going to glue it just so a tiny piece of this shows. So if you see where I'm putting the glue is just, you know, a little bit off the side here, and then the rest of this I will glue down. Let's go this way. Okay, got a little overzealous with my glue there. Okay, and then I need the other piece, which will glue on top. And actually, you know, like even this piece that's like from an advertisement from the other side of the magazine is kind of fun. So it's not, you know, not a lot of the excess is showing, but enough. All right. Oops. So I'm lining up the tape, or the base, the strip base is what I'm really lining up. And if there's something that's showing that, you know, bothers me, which really nothing is like the white of some of the back here. The only thing that sticks out a lot is this little red piece, and it doesn't really bother me because it ties back into here. And it sticks out of my journal a little bit. And if that starts to get, you know, mangled, then I will, it actually looks like a fishtail. That's kind of hilarious. If that starts to get mangled as it's going, then I'll cut it off, or I'll trim it off, or I'll rip it off. But I as of right now, I don't have anything really sticking out of the journal, but that I like this. So maybe what I need to do is the next few spreads, I need to work on having some items peek up and down the top and the bottom of the journal to tie this part in. All right, so then I take my other two and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. All right, so I have my two snippet rolls glued on, and this is my trim. I have trimmed my pages. And now, ooh, I didn't even notice that. See? Delightful, fun things. So now I have the way that it folded. I now have it fold. Oh my God, it just balanced itself. How exciting is that? So I was thinking they would both end up here, but they don't. So now I definitely need to do something on one of the pages up front that starts to stick out of here and here. And I will plan that with the next couple. So there you have it. And then I still have this little snippet roll. And this is also, could be another thought because I have it. Oh, I just love that. Oh my God. It's super busy and I love it. Oh my God, I love it. Anyway, so if I'm back in here, then something to think about is that I still have this piece and, you know, I don't have to do it just like this, but it might be fun to, maybe it would edge like the top of a page. That would be just absolutely gorgeous. And, you know, like the top of a page could be here. I could add it to the bottom of something where it peeks out. Let's see, just, you know. So this snippet roll I'll use it somewhere in the front section. The middle probably not so much, but the front section for sure. And have it peek out the top and the bottom. I'll just divide it into two. It could be on two different spreads, but then it will help balance the fact that these are sticking out. All right. Ooh, well, there it is. My first snippet roll. That was really delightfully fun. And what a great way to use up some of the scraps. And also 6 prompts, people. We ended up using 6 prompts on our snippet roll. So if you have done a snippet roll or have a different way that you do them, I would love to know below. If this was something new to you, also let me know below. And thank you so much for hanging out with me today while I made my first snippet roll. I hope you learned something new, or at least were inspired to go try it yourself. All right? Thanks so much, friends. I will see you soon in another video.